Hello and welcome back to day 2 of the Foundation Sprint workshop inspired by Knapp and John Zeratsky's book Click. In the last session, we brainstormed different approaches. Now it's time to decide which ones have the most potential to solve the problem. This is where magic lenses come in. Just like reaching out for sunglasses when the sun finally shines in Berlin, these lenses help us filter out distractions and focus on what really matters. They provide a structured way to assess ideas from different perspectives and make smarter decisions. I'm Dana Vetsan, and in this video, we'll explore how magic lenses work. If you are just joining us, be sure to check out day 1 sessions on aligning on the basics and identifying key differentiators. And don't miss the first part of day 2, where we created one-page summaries to basically clarify our approaches. Everything we do now builds on those foundations. Imagine picking up a kaleidoscope for the first time. You peer inside, give it a twist, and suddenly the same colored pieces rearrange themselves into an entirely new pattern. You haven't changed the objects inside, just the angle you're viewing them from. That's exactly how lenses work in our workshop. A small shift in perspective can transform an idea, revealing possibilities and pitfalls you might have otherwise missed. In Click, Jake Knapp describes lenses as filters or a team of rivals that encourage you to examine your solution under different scenarios. By using different lenses, you reset assumptions, challenge blind spots, and unlock fresh thinking. Instead of staying stuck in your default perspective, you spin the kaleidoscope, change your angle, and discover entire new possibilities. Lenses help you think like a beginner again, asking bold questions early so you're not blindsided later. We'll now spend 1 hour and 15 minutes diving into this process with your team. You will simulate different viewpoints with these 4 default lenses: customer lens, which options provides the best user experience; pragmatic lens, which option is easiest, cheapest, and fastest to build; growth lens, which option has the best chance of scaling and attracting users; and money lens, which option promises the highest return of investment. Together, these lenses mirror diverse perspectives of a product visionary, an engineer, a marketer, and a financial analyst. This well rounded view lets you assess each idea's strengths and weaknesses from multiple angles. But how does it work? You'll use a 2 by 2 matrix to visualize these lenses. For example, when applying the customer lens, you might set one axis as easy to use versus hard to use, and the other one as just okay solution to the problem versus perfectly solves the problem. For the pragmatic lens, you might have one axis cheap to build versus expensive to build, and the other one fast to build versus slow to build. If we are looking at the growth lens, you have easy to adopt versus hard to adopt, and the other one, more customers versus less potential customers. For the money lens, you have more long term value versus less long term value, and more potential customers versus less potential customers. Plotting your solutions in these quadrants can reveal which ideas excel in user experience. Of course, you might need to tweak those axes to suit your specific context. Teams should design their own lenses to reflect the risks and decision factors that matter most. If we go back to our case study, the data and analytics team realized that for compliance professionals, ease of use was important, but credible and legally defensible insights were even more critical. Instead of the default just okay solution versus perfectly solves the problem, they used unverified versus trustworthy to reflect their concerns. When it comes to the pragmatic lens, that typically asks which solution is easiest, cheapest, and fastest to build. But the data and analytics team wanted to go deeper, focusing on how much upkeep each approach would require over time. They recognize that compliance often involves constant updates, which can become a major headache in a system that relies too heavily on manual input. So they chose two axes for their matrix: automated versus manual, and low effort to maintain versus high effort to maintain. Many existing compliance tools require full time teams just to stay current with changing regulations. By leaning into automation and low maintenance, the data analytics team saw a chance for meaningful differentiation. Then they applied the growth lens, assessing factors like how seamlessly a solution integrates, the easy to integrate axis, and its ability to scale globally, the global scalability axis. They knew that adoption depends on how easy their solution fits into existing systems and how well it handles global compliance needs. Because compliance regulations differ across EU, US, APAC, and beyond. A platform that scales internationally gains massive advantage, especially if it can adapt quickly to new rules in multiple regions. Finally, the data analytics team tackled financial feasibility. Is this idea profitable in the long run? And will customers be willing to pay for it? They defined two axes to capture both value and affordability. Even if a solution is amazing, if it's priced out of reach or perceived as such, adoption suffers. So now it will be your team's turn to customize these lenses, these teams of rivals. First, you will review as a group the default lenses and then invite the team to discuss and ask the question, do these labels reflect what matters to our project? If they do not, then tweak them until they make sense. Assign 15 minutes for this discussion and rewrite the different labels directly on the 2 by 2 matrix. Once the team finished customizing their lenses, the customer, pragmatic, growth, and money one, it is time to see how each potential backup solution stacked up. Here's how you can run this activity. Each approach has a different label so everyone can track the ideas easily. Have your team place each approach on its corresponding 2 by 2 matrix to visualize where it falls. In our data and analytics example, approach A refers to web platform with proactive dashboards, while approach B refers to the AI powered compliance copilot, C to the compliance feed, D is about the mobile app for compliance on the go, and E for the community knowledge driven approach. Now you will place each approach on one axis at a time. You basically pick a lens and duplicate the labels so they are closer to the lens, and you ask your team, is approach A, the dashboard in our case, easier or harder to use? And is it trustworthy? And what about B, the AI powered copilot? Is it easier to use and more trustworthy than A? Now let's look at C, the personalized newsfeed. And you repeat for each approach. You'll have your team tweak their relative positions until everyone agrees. If there's confusion, like whether an idea is truly faster to implement or just cheaper, the decider can step in. For example, approach C might be faster to develop, but the AI integration could make it more complex. So maybe it belongs slightly to the right on implementation difficulty. If the initial matrix labels don't fully capture your team's thinking, you can update them on the fly. By systematically mapping your ideas on these magic lenses, you'll clearly see each approach's strengths and weaknesses, whether it's the AI powered compliance assistant or a community driven knowledge exchange. This visual comparison makes it easier to spot which idea shines and which might need further tweaking, especially when you zoom out. As the team finishes these discussions, it's time to plot those approaches on the differentiators the team has identified on day one. Just a quick note, make sure you watch Foundation Sprint Day 1 videos before this lesson as it will provide you with the missing context. Now, if you already watched those videos, you probably remember the two differentiator pairings the data analytics teams identified: personalized versus one size fits all, and proactive versus reactive. Now it's time to assess how well each shortlisted approach aligns with those core differentiators. The facilitator updates the templates on the board with the original differentiators and asks the team to plot their approaches by copying and pasting each label A, B, C, D, E on the chart. Then they ask how personalized versus one size fits all is approach A, and is approach B more proactive or more reactive? Adjust those placements until there is team consensus. If an approach falls outside that zone, make quick adjustments or tweaks to the approaches so that you can move it closer to your core sweet spot. Next step, step 4 on our mirror board, zoom out and review. Once you've plotted each approach on the magic lenses and on your day one differentiator chart, it's time to see the big picture. Zoom out on your board and notice which approach consistently lands in the ideal quadrant, often top right across multiple charts. Does one lens seem especially important, tipping the scale for a specific idea? So at this point, your team has systematically compared each idea across multiple lenses and revisited your core differentiators. You have the data you need to make a confident decision. The decider picks the primary approach plus a backup plan if things don't go as expected. This keeps you moving quickly while minimizing risk. For the data analytics team, the first choice was the AI powered Copilot, and the backup plan was the compliance newsfeed. Congratulations! Hopefully, your team has now evaluated alternative solutions and identified a strong direction. This was not an easy exercise as it requires a lot of brain power. So, take a well deserved lunch break because when you will return, we'll move on to defining your founding hypothesis, the core assumption explaining why you believe your chosen approach will resonate with customers. If you want to learn more about mastering stakeholder alignment, our problem framing on demand course is perfect for you. Make sure you check it out. Find a link in the description below. Thanks so much for watching and stay tuned for our next lesson, Foundation Sprint Day 2, how to fill out the founding hypothesis.